Hayes stepped off the transport shuttle and into the main hall of Zenith Academy. The massive space station orbited above, a neutral world where 47 species sent their students to learn. The corridors stretched wide enough to accommodate beings 3 times her size. Crystalline lights floated overhead, casting soft glows on walls that shifted colors with each passing moment. She adjusted the strap of her single bag and walked forward. Other students moved past her in groups, their voices mixing into a chorus of different languages and sounds. Some had scales, others had fur or chitinous shells. A few floated rather than walked, kept her eyes forward and her expression calm. A tall creature with 4 arms and skin like purple crystal approached her. Each movement created tiny chiming sounds. "You must be my assigned roommate," the being said in perfect English, though her tone carried clear disappointment. "I am Ha of the collective, and you are human, yes." "Hayes," she replied simply. "Yes, I'm human." Ha made a sound that might have been a sigh. "Well, I suppose we must make the best of it. Come, I will show you to our quarters. Try not to touch anything valuable. I understand your species is still learning proper technology." Followed without responding. She had expected this. Humans had joined the Galactic Council only 15 years ago. Most species saw Earth as a primitive backwater, a death world that somehow produced sapient life. The fact that any human got accepted to Zenith Academy surprised most of the galaxy. Their shared room was larger than expected. One side already held Ha's belongings, organized with precise care. The other side stood empty, waiting, set her bag down on the bare sleeping platform and began unpacking. She owned very little. A few changes of clothes, basic supplies, and a single photograph she kept face down in her bag. "Orientation begins in 1 hour, Ha said. "Do not be late, the Academy has strict standards." She left without waiting for a response. Sat on the edge of her bed and looked around the empty half of the room. For a moment her hands shook slightly. She clenched them into fists, took a slow breath, and forced the tremor away. She had come too far to doubt herself now. The orientation hall filled with hundreds of students. Found a seat near the back and watched as various species clustered together. Most humans sat in a small group near the front. She recognized them from the acceptance files, all children of diplomats or scientists, all well-connected. She was the odd one, the applicant with no family connections, no political backing, just test scores that somehow passed the impossible standards. A young human man with an easy smile slid into the seat next to her. "Hey, you're right. I'm Tyler Brooks. Saw your name on the human acceptance list. Thought I'd say hello before the circus starts." He gestured at the gathering crowd. "Pretty wild, huh? 3 years ago, I never imagined I'd be sitting in a room with a war hero or a noble." "It's impressive," agreed quietly. "That's one word for it. I'm going for pilot certification. What about you?" "Tactical command and diplomacy." Tyler whistled softly. "Ambitious. That's the hardest track. Most aliens think humans are too aggressive for diplomacy, not smart enough for command." He grinned. "Guess you're here to prove them wrong." Before could respond, a massive figure entered the hall. The creature stood nearly 9 feet tall, covered in dark green scales with ridge patterns running down its spine. Its eyes glowed a faint amber. The room fell silent instantly. "I am Commander," he announced, his voice carrying easily through the space. "I am head of tactical instruction at this academy. You are here because your worlds believe you have potential. I am here to discover if they are correct." His gaze swept across the students. "Most of you will fail. This is not your comfortable homes. This is not your proud families watching you succeed. This is Zenith Academy, and we accept only the best." He continued speaking about the Academy's history, its standards, and its expectations. Listened carefully, nodding every detail. Next to her, Tyler shifted nervously. Around them, other students whispered to each other, creating a low buzz of sound. A voice spoke up from the center of the room. "Commander, I have a question." A sleek being with silver skin and 6 fingers stood gracefully. His uniform marked him as nobility. "Is it true the Academy lowered its standards to accept more humans this year? My family questions how 3 humans qualified when barely one usually passes." Several students turned to look at the small group of humans, felt eyes on her but kept her expression neutral. Commander's amber eyes fixed on the student. "What is your name?" "Or of House Tellin." "Or every student here earned their place through the same entrance examination. If you wish to question the results, you may challenge any student to an academic or simulation contest. Otherwise, keep your family's doubts to yourself." The commander's tone left no room for argument. Or sat down, but saw him glance back at the human section with clear contempt. The orientation continued for another hour. Different instructors introduced their departments. Elder Mosh, with wise, ancient eyes, spoke about strategic thinking and crisis management. Captain Helena Cross, one of the few human instructors, covered combat theory with military precision. Each instructor emphasized the same message: excellence was the only acceptable standard. When the session ended, students filed out toward their first classes, walked alone, studying the academy map on her data pad. A group of students passed her, speaking in rapid clicks and whistles. One of them bumped into her, hard enough to knock her pad from her hands. "Oh, my apologies," one of them said in accented English. "I did not see you there, you are so small." The others made sounds that might have been laughter. Picked up her pad without responding and continued walking. Tyler caught up to her a few corridors later. "You okay? I saw what happened back there." "I'm fine. Look, I know it's tough. Humans have to work twice as hard here to get half the respect. My advice, keep your head down, do your work, and prove them wrong quietly." He smiled encouragingly. "We're all in this together, right?" Nodded right. But as she entered her first class, combat theory, she wondered how long she could keep her head down. How long before someone pushed hard enough that the careful mask she wore would slip? How long before they discovered that Hayes was not just another human student trying to learn? She found a seat and prepared to take notes the old-fashioned way, with a simple stylus and pad. Around her, other students used neural implants to record everything directly to their enhanced memory systems. Another mark of human primitiveness in their eyes. The instructor, a veteran from the border wars, began explaining the basics of multi-species combat doctrine. Listened, watching, learning, and keeping all her secrets locked safely away. For now, she was just another student. Just another human trying to prove she belonged. But she knew the truth. She had not come to Zenith Academy to prove herself. She had come to escape what she was, to build something new from the pieces of her broken past. The announcement came during breakfast in the main dining hall. Commander's voice echoed through the space, silencing hundreds of conversations instantly. All students report to Simulation Bay 7 immediately following morning meal. Team assignments for the first trials will be distributed. Failure to attend will result in immediate dismissal. Around, students reacted with excitement or dread. The simulation trials were legendary, designed to push students past their limits. Teams of 4 would face scenarios ranging from diplomatic negotiations to combat situations. Performance determined class rankings, equipment access, and instructor attention. Tyler leaned across the table. "This is it, first real test, you nervous?" Shook her head. "Nervous doesn't help." "Fair point," he grinned. "At least we humans are good at adapting. That's what everyone says, right? We come from a death world, so we can handle anything." Ha, sitting nearby with other students, made a dismissive sound. "Adaptability without proper training is merely survival instinct. This academy demands excellence, not primitive improvisation." Said nothing. She finished her meal and headed to the simulation bay with the others. The bay was massive, filled with hundreds of simulation pods connected to a central control system. Holographic displays showed different scenarios waiting to be activated. Students gathered in nervous clusters, waiting for team assignments to appear on the main screen. When's name flashed up, she felt her stomach tighten. Her team consisted of 4 members, or of House Tellin, the warrior, Pix the scholar, and herself. Tyler caught her eye from across the room and made a face that said, "Good luck." His team looked balanced and cooperative. His team looked like a disaster waiting to happen. Or approached with visible annoyance. "This is insulting. I am forced to carry through trials that should showcase excellence." His silver skin seemed to shimmer with irritation. "Very well, I will lead. The rest of you follow my commands without question." The 7-foot covered in dark scales simply grunted. Pix, a small furry being with large eyes, trembled slightly but nodded. Remained quiet, studying her teammates, or was arrogant but intelligent, was strong but rigid in thinking. Pix was smart but lacked confidence. They could work together if guided properly, but Or's ego would make that nearly impossible. Their first scenario loaded into the simulation pod. The 4 of them stood on the bridge of a merchant vessel, alarms blaring. The situation briefing appeared in text: hostage situation aboard a disabled ship. Armed individuals held 30 civilians. Demands included supplies, safe passage, and no pursuit. Standard hostage protocol, or announced immediately. We breach quickly, overwhelm the criminals with superior force, secure the civilians. Scan the data streaming across the displays. Something felt wrong. The supposed criminals' ship signatures did not match known raider vessels. Their demands were inconsistent with typical pirate operations. They asked for medical supplies more than weapons or currency. "Wait," she said quietly. "Look at the pattern." I did not ask for input from crew, or cut her off. "You will lead the breach. Pix, you monitor communication channels. The human will provide whatever minor support her limited abilities allow." Tried again. "The data suggests these aren't raiders. Their ship shows damage from." "Enough," Or's tone was sharp. "I am team leader. We proceed with my plan." The simulation ran. Or's aggressive approach triggered a defensive response from the supposed hostage-takers. Fighting erupted. Pix panicked and froze at her station. Charged forward but found himself outmaneuvered in the tight corridors. Tried to adapt, but the damage was done. When the simulation ended, 12 civilians were dead and the ship was venting atmosphere. The pod doors opened. Commander stood waiting with several other instructors. His amber eyes showed no emotion as he reviewed the results. "Team 4, your performance was unacceptable. The individuals you engaged were accident survivors attempting to protect injured crew from what they perceived as a military assault. Had you studied the scenario properly, you would have recognized this." He paused. "Or your aggression cost lives. You followed orders without thinking. Pix, you failed under pressure." He turned to Hayes. "You identified the correct analysis. Your assessment was accurate. Why did you not act on it?" "I tried to communicate with my team leader, sir." "And when he refused to listen?" Met his eyes. "I was uncertain of the proper protocol for overriding a designated leader." Commander made a sound that might have been approval. "In a real situation, lives depend on correct action, not proper protocol. Remember that." He entered grades into his data pad. "Hayes receives full marks. The rest of you have failed this scenario." Or's face darkened with anger. As they exited the bay, he turned on. "You made me look foolish in front of the instructors. I gave you correct information. You chose not to use it. You are a human. You should be grateful I even acknowledged your presence on my team." He stalked away, leaving the others standing awkwardly. Looked at with new consideration. "Your analysis was correct. I should have questioned the orders." He nodded once and left. Pix approached carefully. "I'm sorry I froze. I've never handled that kind of pressure before." "It's okay," said. "First time is always hard. You'll do better next time." The small seemed surprised by the kindness. "Thank you. Most students would have blamed me." Over the next week, the trials continued. Each scenario tested different skills. Teams stumbled through diplomatic simulations, barely passed technical challenges, and struggled with cooperative exercises, or refused to acknowledge input even when his plans clearly failed. The tension grew with each poor performance. Then came the second combat scenario. The team loaded into the simulation pod and found themselves defending a small colony from attacking raiders. They had defensive positions, limited weapons, and responsibility for civilian evacuation. The scenario clock showed they had 20 minutes before raiders overwhelmed the settlement. Or immediately began positioning forces according to military doctrine, placing heavy firepower at central points with overlapping fields of fire. It was textbook strategy, taught across the galaxy. Studied the tactical displays while or gave orders. The raider approach patterns bothered her. They were too coordinated, too professional. The species identification tagged them as a warrior race known for frontal assaults and honor combat. But these movements showed flanking maneuvers and deception tactics. Or, she said carefully, "The raiders aren't moving like warriors, their patterns suggest." "Your constant interruptions are tiresome," he snapped. "I have studied military theory since childhood. My family has served in the fleet for 6 generations. I do not need advice from a species that barely understands space travel." "But the data—" "Enough," he turned to the others. "We hold these positions. When raiders attack, we crush them with superior firepower." Fell silent. She moved to her assigned position but kept watching the tactical feeds. Her instincts screamed that something was wrong. The raiders were not. They were something else, using stolen identification codes and false patterns to disguise their real capabilities. The attack began. Raiders poured toward the colony from multiple directions. Or's defensive positions opened fire, cutting down the first wave efficiently. He smiled with satisfaction. You see, proper training and discipline win battles. Then the real attack came. The raiders shed their false approach patterns and struck with military precision. They were not at all but commandos, an elite strike force known for infiltration and deception. They bypassed the heavy defensive positions, hit weak points in the defense, and drove straight toward the civilian evacuation zones. Or's carefully planned defense collapsed in minutes, fought bravely but was overwhelmed. Pix tried to coordinate communications, but the raiders jammed everything. The colony defenses fell apart, civilians were caught in crossfire, and the simulation spiraled toward total disaster. Made a decision. She abandoned her assigned position and moved through the chaos, using terrain and cover that others ignored. Years of training kicked in without conscious thought. She read the enemy movement patterns, predicted their next positions, and struck at command elements rather than engaging line troops. When a group of raiders cornered a civilian transport, hit them from an unexpected angle. When enemy fire pinned down, she created a distraction that let him reposition. When Pix's station came under direct assault, was there, using the environment and quick thinking instead of heavy weapons. She implemented tactics that no academy textbook taught. Guerrilla strategies learned in Earth's harsh conflicts. Behavioral analysis developed through brutal necessity. She moved constantly, never where the enemy expected, always adapting to changing situations. Slowly, impossibly, the tide turned. The colony defenses stabilized. Civilians reached evacuation ships. The raiders found themselves outmaneuvered by a single opponent who seemed to anticipate their every move. When the simulation ended, the colony stood intact with minimal casualties. The pod opened to reveal Commander and the entire combat theory class watching on observation screens. They had all seen the replay. The Commander was silent for a long moment. Then he began breaking down performance, analyzing each decision, each movement, each tactic. This, he said to the assembled students, is adaptation under pressure. Hayes identified the deception, recognized the enemy's true nature, and adjusted strategy accordingly. She used inferior position and equipment to defeat a superior force through creative thinking and precise execution. He turned his team. Or your rigid adherence to doctrine cost you the scenario. You fought well but without flexibility. Pix, you performed adequately under stress. His eyes fixed on. Hayes, exceptional work, you are dismissed. As students filed out, felt dozens of eyes on her. Tyler gave her a proud grin. Some students looked at her with new respect. Others, like Orr, watched her with suspicion and anger. Ha found her in the corridor later. That was not beginner's luck in the simulation. Those were professional military tactics. I studied hard, said quietly. Sleep did not come easily to any more. She lay in her bed, staring at the ceiling while Ha's soft, crystalline breathing filled the quiet room. Every night was the same. She would close her eyes and see fire, hear screaming, feel the weight of decisions that could never be unmade. Tonight the memories were particularly vivid. A settlement burning, people running, the smell of smoke and blood mixing in air too thin to breathe properly. She was 12 years old again, hiding in a storage container while the world ended outside. Her eyes snapped open. Her heart pounded hard against her ribs. She focused on breathing slowly, counting each inhale and exhale until the panic faded. 4 years since the colony wars ended. 4 years and the nightmares still came every time she let her guard down. She sat up carefully, not wanting to wake Ha. The photograph lay in her bag, still face down where she kept it. She did not need to look at it. The image was burned into her memory. The memorial stone. The names, so many names. A soft chime from her data pad announced a message. Tyler wanted to meet for breakfast before classes, sent a quick confirmation and prepared for the day. The academy corridors were already busy when she left her quarters. Students rushed to classes, clustered in common areas or practiced in training facilities. Most ignored her now. Some watched her with curiosity. A few, like Orr and his group of elite students, looked at her with open hostility. Tyler was waiting at their usual table in the dining hall, 2 meal trays already prepared. Morning, thought I'd save you time. He pushed one tray toward her. Big day today, new instructor arrives for advanced combat class. Anyone important? Very, Tyler leaned forward, voice dropping. Captain Helena Cross, she's a legend. 30 years in human military service, fought in conflicts across 3 sectors, retired as one of the most decorated officers Earth has ever produced. He paused. She's also known for being incredibly tough on students. Stomach tightened. She knew that name. Everyone in Earth's military knew that name. Captain Cross had commanded special operations during the final years of the colony wars. She had led missions that turned impossible odds into unlikely victories. She had also commanded the unit that. "You okay?" Tyler asked. "You look pale." "Fine, just tired." They finished breakfast and headed to the combat training facility. The large space was designed to accommodate multiple species, with adjustable gravity fields and environmental controls. Captain Helena Cross stood at the center, watching students file in. She was tall for a human woman, her posture military straight. Gray hair cut short, eyes that missed nothing, scars on her hands and one visible on her neck. She wore the academy instructor uniform, but something about the way she wore it suggested she would be more comfortable in combat armor. "Take your positions," Cross said when all students had arrived. Her voice carried authority that demanded immediate obedience. "I am Captain Helena Cross. I am here to teach you about combat. Not theory, not simulation, real combat. The kind that gets people killed when they make mistakes." She walked slowly between the students, studying each one. "Most of you come from species with natural advantages, stronger bodies, telepathy, energy manipulation, built-in weapons." Her eyes swept across the room. "Humans have none of these advantages. We are slow compared to, weak compared to, we cannot breathe toxic atmospheres or survive in vacuum without equipment." She stopped walking. "So how do humans compete? We adapt, we learn, we use what we have in ways others do not expect." Her gaze found in the crowd and lingered for a moment. "Today we start with basic combat assessment. Partner up, show me what you know." Students paired off quickly, found herself facing a reptilian species known for speed and aggression. The grinned, showing rows of sharp teeth. This should be quick. The sparring matches began. Watched her opponent carefully, noting movement patterns and tells. When the struck was not where the attack landed. She used minimal movement, letting the opponent's momentum work against them. 3 moves later, was on the ground, confused about how they got there. "Again," Captain Cross called out. They repeated the match 5 times, each time won through technique rather than strength. She did not show off. Did not use her full capabilities, just enough to pass the assessment without drawing too much attention. It did not work. "Hayes, step forward." Captain Cross motioned her to the center of the training area. "Your technique is competent, but you are holding back. Why?" "I'm not, ma'am, I'm just—" "Do not lie to me, cadet." Cross's eyes were hard. "I have trained thousands of soldiers. I know when someone is hiding their real skill level." She paused. "You move like someone with years of combat experience, not simulation experience, real combat, so I will ask you again. Why are you holding back?" The training facility had gone quiet. Every student was watching. Met Cross's eyes. "I came here to learn diplomacy and command, ma'am, not to prove I can fight." "Interesting answer." Cross studied her for a long moment. "Dismissed, all of you. Training continues tomorrow." As students filed out, Cross called out one more time. "Hayes, my office now." Tyler shot a worried look as she followed the captain to a small office adjacent to the training facility. Cross shut the door and gestured to a chair. Remained standing. "Sit down, soldier." "Sad." Cross activated a privacy field that would prevent anyone outside from hearing their conversation. Then she pulled up a file on her data pad and turned it so could see. Military records, service history, combat citations, all marked with heavy redactions and classified stamps. "I know who you are," Cross said quietly. "I commanded your unit for 2 years before I retired. I was there at Sector 7. I was there when we found you in that storage container. And I was there when you enlisted at 16 against every regulation in the book." Said nothing, her hands gripped the chair arms tightly. "You were one of the best soldiers I ever had the privilege to command," Cross continued. "Smart, brave, adaptable. You saved more lives than most veterans twice your age." She leaned forward. "You also saw things no one should see, did things that were necessary but terrible, carried weight that broke soldiers with years of experience." "Why are you telling me this, Captain?" "Because you came here to run away from who you are, and that will not work." Cross's voice was not unkind, just honest. You cannot hide from your past. It is part of you. The question is whether you let it define you or whether you integrate it into something better. I don't want to be that person anymore. Then don't be, but don't pretend you never were either. Cross stood. The galaxy needs people who understand both war and peace, people who know the cost of violence and choose diplomacy because they have seen the alternative. You can be that person, but not if you keep hiding. Looked down at her hands. They were steady now, but she remembered how they used to shake, how she would wake up not knowing if the blood she saw was memory or hallucination. How did you do it? Move past it. I did not move past it. I learned to live with it, to honor it by trying to build something better. Cross placed a hand on shoulder briefly. Give yourself time, and stop holding back in my class. I need these students to learn from the best, and you are one of them, whether you want to admit it or not. The conversation ended and left the office. Her mind was spinning, emotions she had kept locked away threatening to surface. She needed air, space, time to think. But the academy had other plans. Commander's voice came over the facility-wide speakers. All senior students report to briefing hall immediately. This is not a drill. Joined the flood of students heading toward the hall. Tyler found her in the crowd. What's going on? No idea. The briefing hall filled quickly. Commander stood at the front with Elder Mosh and several other senior instructors. His expression was grave. Students, we have received an emergency notification. A colony in the system is under attack by unknown hostiles. The Galactic Council fleet is 12 hours away. Local defense forces are overwhelmed. Thousands of civilians are in danger. He paused, letting the information sink in. The Academy has 3 training vessels in range. We can reach the colony in 6 hours. Murmurs spread through the gathered students. This was not a simulation. This was real. I am calling for volunteers, senior students only. You will serve as support crew under experienced instructors. This will be dangerous. This will be real combat. Some of you may be injured or killed. Samber eyes swept across the room. No one will think less of you if you choose not to volunteer. This goes far beyond academy requirements. For a moment, no one moved, then stood up. I volunteer. Tyler was on his feet immediately. Me too. Slowly, other students rose. Picks, even or pride demanding he not show weakness. Within minutes, half the hall was standing, ready to face real danger for people they had never met. Commander nodded slowly. Very well, report to the hangar bay in 1 hour. Bring minimal personal effects. Captain Cross will brief ground teams. Elder Mosh will handle coordination. And students, he paused. I am proud of you, all of you. Headed back to her quarters to gather her things. Ha was there, having heard the announcement. You are going, they asked. Yes. Why, you could stay safe here. No one would judge you. Thought about the photograph in her bag. About the people who did not get a chance to be saved because help arrived too late. About the girl who hid in a container while her world burned. Because someone has to help them, she said simply, and I can. Ha was quiet for a moment. Then she did something unexpected. She touched shoulder gently, a gesture of respect among her people. Then come back safe, roommate. We still have much to learn from each other. An hour later, stood in the hangar bay with dozens of other volunteers. Captain Cross divided them into teams. Found herself assigned to the ground combat unit along with Tyler, or Pix, and 15 other students from various species. The Academy vessels cut through space at maximum speed, but 6 hours felt like an eternity. Sat in the transport bay with the other ground team members, checking equipment and running through mental preparations. Around her, students dealt with pre-mission stress in different ways. Some talked nervously. Others sat in meditation. A few reviewed tactical data on their pads. Tyler was methodically checking his pilot gear for the 3rd time. You ever done anything like this before? He asked quietly. Real combat, I mean, not simulation. Kept her eyes on the weapon she was inspecting. Yes. He waited for her to elaborate. When she did not, he nodded slowly. Right, stupid question, he paused. Hey, whatever happens down there, I got your back. Same. Captain Cross entered the bay and all conversation stopped. She looked at each student carefully, assessing them with the practiced eye of a veteran officer. Listen up. When we arrive, the situation will be chaotic. Civilians will be panicking. Enemy forces will be entrenched. Local defense will be falling apart. Your training will tell you to follow standard protocols. Forget that. She brought up a holographic display of the colony. Combat is not clean. It is not orderly. People will be scared, including some of you. That is normal. What matters is that you keep moving, keep thinking, and keep protecting the civilians. That is our only mission. Protect the civilians and buy time for evacuation. Or raised his hand. Captain, what are the enemy force estimates? Approximately 200 hostiles with military-grade weapons. They have established defensive positions around the main civilian shelters. Intel suggests they are mercenaries, well-trained and organized. A student spoke up. 200 against our ground team of 30, those are not favorable odds. No, they are not, Cross agreed. Which is why we are not going to fight fair. We are going to use speed, surprise, and the terrain to our advantage. We hit them where they are weak, protect the civilians, and hold until the council fleet arrives. She looked around the bay. Questions? No one spoke. Good, prep for drop in 30 minutes, dismissed. The final half hour passed too quickly. Students suited up in combat gear designed for their species. Humans wore lighter armor with more mobility. Students carried heavier weapons. Scouts prepared for fast reconnaissance. Everyone tried to hide their fear with varying degrees of success. Felt a strange calm settle over her. This feeling was familiar, the quiet focus before action. The way time seemed to slow down. Her hands were steady as she checked her equipment one last time. The ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel, and alarms immediately blared. The colony was visible on screens, defensive shields flickering under sustained fire. Raider vessels circled like predators. The Academy's 3 training vessels were hopelessly outmatched in firepower, but Commander had not come to win a space battle. He had come to buy time. All ground teams to drop ships, Cross ordered. Pilots, you are with me. Everyone else, stay focused and remember your training. The drop was violent and fast, designed to minimize time as a target. The transport shook as it entered atmosphere under fire. Students grabbed restraints, faces tight with tension. Watched the altitude counter drop and felt muscle memory take over. She had done this before, dropped into combat zones where everything went wrong, survived when others did not. The transport hit ground hard, ramp already dropping. Move, 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 Cross shouted, and 30 students poured out into hell. The colony was in chaos. Buildings burned. Civilians ran in panic. Weapons fire echoed from multiple directions. The defensive perimeter had collapsed, leaving raiders in position to slaughter anyone trying to evacuate. Cross immediately began organizing students into fire teams, but enemy fire was too intense. Within seconds, students were pinned down, taking cover wherever they could find it. Plans fell apart in the face of reality. A raider position opened fire on a group of civilians trying to reach the evacuation zone. Children screamed. Adults tried to shield them with their bodies. The students were too far away, too scattered to help. Then Captain Cross went down, hit by enemy fire while trying to coordinate the advance. Tyler and another student dragged her back to cover, but the command structure had just collapsed. Students looked around in panic, waiting for orders that did not come. Saw it all with terrible clarity. The raiders were professional, their positions chosen well. The students were brave but inexperienced, scared, and disorganized. If nothing changed, people were going to die. A lot of people. She made a choice. Listen to me. His voice cut through the chaos, carrying command that brooked no argument. Students, provide suppressing fire on the northern positions. Scouts, use your speed to flank right. Engineers, I need you on communication jamming now. Students turned toward her, surprised but responding to the authority in her voice, or started to object. You have no authority to. People are dying right now. You want to argue or you want to help? His eyes were hard. Your choice, but make it fast. Or looked at the civilians under fire, then back at. Something in her expression made him nod. What do you need? Tactical data on enemy positions, find their command structure, and get pics on environmental controls if any still work. We need every advantage. Within minutes, had reorganized the scattered students into effective fire teams. She placed each species where their natural abilities worked best. Strength for direct assault, speed for flanking, technical skills for system disruption, human adaptability to coordinate it all. She led from the front, showing students how to move between cover, when to advance, where to focus fire. Her tactical calls were precise, based on reading enemy patterns and predicting their responses. This was not academy theory. This was hard-earned experience. The raiders noticed the change immediately. The disorganized students were suddenly fighting like a coordinated unit. Positions the raiders thought secure came under attack from unexpected angles. Their communication systems suffered interference. Their comfortable superiority started to crack. A group of raiders broke toward the civilian shelters, intending to use hostages as shields. Spotted the movement instantly. Tyler, or with me, everyone else hold the line. The three of them moved fast, cutting through side passages and using terrain the raiders had ignored. They reached the shelter entrance just as the raiders arrived. The fight was close and brutal, no room for mistakes. Tyler fought with pilot reflexes, fast and precise, or discovered that his noble training actually had practical applications in real combat, and fought like someone who had done this too many times before, efficient and ruthless when necessary, measured and careful when possible. They held the entrance. The civilians were safe, but raiders were regrouping for a major assault and knew her improvised defense could not hold much longer. "Or I need you at the tactical station," said quickly. "You are good with data. Feed me enemy movement patterns in real time. Tyler, coordinate with the pilots above. We need close air support on my mark." Or ran for the tactical center without argument. Tyler got on communications with the Academy vessels still fighting in orbit, organized the students into defensive positions, preparing for the coming assault. The raiders came in force, trying to overwhelm the defenders with numbers and firepower, but had positioned her forces perfectly, creating kill zones and fallback positions. When one line got pressed, another provided cover. When raiders tried to flank, they found students waiting. Slowly, impossibly, the students held. They fought not as 30 individuals, but as a single unit, each supporting the others. Species that usually competed now protected each other. Humans and aliens worked together because that was the only way to survive. Hours passed in a blur of combat. Was everywhere, directing fire, adjusting positions, keeping students focused. Her voice never wavered. Her orders never hesitated. She had become what she tried to leave behind, a combat leader, and the students followed her without question. Then the raiders made their final push. A massive assault on 3 sides simultaneously, designed to shatter the defense completely. Saw it coming, recognized the pattern. This was the decisive moment. "All units fall back to secondary positions," she ordered. "Or, I need precise coordinates on their command center now. Tyler, get those pilots in position." "I have it," or called back, sending data. Studied the information, calculating odds and angles. The Raider command center was heavily defended, but it was also their weak point. Take out the commanders, and the assault would falter. But reaching it meant going through the most heavily defended area with minimal support. "I need volunteers for a direct assault on enemy command," said calmly. "This is dangerous. No one will think less of you if you stay." Tyler stepped forward immediately. "I'm in." Or surprised everyone by moving to join them. "My family has served in military command for 6 generations. I will not hide while humans show courage." Pix, the small who had frozen in the first simulation, took a breath and nodded. "I'm coming too." Looked at the 3 of them. "This is real, not simulation. People can die." "We know," Tyler said simply. "Let's go save some civilians." The 4 of them moved through the chaos toward the Raider command position. It was suicidal, and they all knew it. But if they did not try, the defense would collapse, and thousands would die. Led them through a nightmare of combat, using every trick and tactic she had learned through years of war. They fought their way forward meter by meter. Tyler covered their advance with precise fire, or used his tactical training to predict enemy movement. Pix proved braver than anyone expected, using her small size to slip through gaps and sabotage equipment. They reached the command center just as the Raider assault reached its peak. Inside, faced the Raider commander, a veteran who immediately recognized what she was. "You are a soldier," he said almost respectfully. "Real one, not academy student playing war." "I was," replied. "Now I am trying to be something else." "Then you are a fool. Soldiers fight. That is what we are." No's voice was quiet but firm. "Soldiers protect. There is a difference." The Raider commander smiled grimly. "Perhaps, but you are still going to fight me, yes?" "Yes." The battle between them was fierce but brief, had youth and desperation on her side. The commander had experience and ruthlessness. In the end, won by fighting not to kill but to disable. She took him down with precise strikes that left him alive but unable to continue. With the command center captured, she used the raiders' own systems to disrupt their assault. Confusion spread through enemy ranks. The coordinated attack fell apart. Students on the defense pushed forward, taking advantage of the chaos. And then, finally, the Galactic Council fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Massive warships filled the sky. The raiders, seeing their opportunity lost, began retreating or surrendering. It was over. Stood in the captured command center, breathing hard, hands shaking slightly now that the adrenaline was fatting. Around her, Tyler, Orr, and Pix looked at each other with expressions of shock and relief. "We did it," Pix whispered. "We actually did it." Tyler laughed, the sound slightly hysterical. "That was insane. We should all be dead." Or looked at with something that might have been respect. "You led us through that. Against impossible odds, you got us through." Said nothing. She just sat down heavily, feeling every bit of her 19 years and simultaneously feeling ancient. The mask she had worn so carefully was gone completely. Everyone had seen what she was. There would be no hiding anymore. Captain Cross, injured but mobile, entered the command center. She looked at for a long moment, then nodded once. It was the nod of one veteran to another, recognition and understanding. "Good work, soldier," Cross said quietly. "Now let's get these civilians evacuated and go home." The Academy vessels prepared for departure as Council forces secured the colony. Students helped with evacuation, treated wounded, and slowly processed what they had just experienced. Real combat was nothing like simulation. The fear was real. The danger was real. And for the first time, many of them understood what it truly meant to put your life on the line for strangers. Found a quiet corner and allowed herself to feel everything she had pushed aside during the battle. Relief, exhaustion, guilt for the raiders she had hurt, pride that they had saved the civilians, fear that she was becoming the person she had tried to leave behind. But mostly she felt something unexpected, a sense that maybe Captain Cross was right. Maybe the point was not to run from her past, but to use it to build something better. She had been a soldier. That would always be part of her. But she could choose to be a soldier who protected rather than destroyed. The Academy vessels returned to Zenith Station 3 days after departing. Those 3 days felt like 3 years to the students who had survived the colony defense. Medical staff treated injuries. Counselors spoke with students struggling to process what they had witnessed. News of the Academy's actions spread across the Galactic Council at light speed. Spent most of the return trip in the medical bay, not because she was seriously injured, but because Captain Cross had ordered her there for evaluation. The doctors found bruises, minor cuts, and signs of exhaustion. They also found something else. "Your stress markers are unusual," the medical officer said, studying the scan results. "You show physiological indicators consistent with long-term combat exposure, not recent, years old. How long were you in military service?" "Long enough," replied quietly. The doctor made notes but did not push further. When was cleared to leave, she found Tyler waiting outside the medical bay. He looked tired but alive, his usual cheerful expression subdued. "Hey," he said, "heard you got cleared, that's good." He fell into step beside her as they walked toward the quarters section. "Pretty crazy, huh? I mean, we actually did it. Saved a whole colony. People are calling us heroes." "We just did what needed doing." "Yeah, well, most people couldn't have done it, especially the way you led us." Tyler glanced at her. "Everyone's talking about you, you know, about how you took command when things fell apart, how you knew exactly what to do. Some people are asking questions." "What kind of questions?" "The kind about where you learned to fight like that, about who you really are." He paused. "Or has been researching. He found some stuff about Earth's colony wars, about special operations units that handled the worst missions. He thinks you were part of that." Stopped walking, and what do you think? Tyler met her eyes steadily. "I think you came here trying to be someone different than who you were. I think you have been hiding something important since day one. And I think, after seeing you save all those people, that whatever you are hiding does not matter as much as what you chose to do when it counted. Even if I did terrible things before, things that keep me awake at night. Did you do them because you wanted to or because you had to? Thought about the colony wars, about the settlements that were attacked, about the choice between doing nothing and doing something terrible to stop something worse. Both, maybe, I don't know anymore." Then I guess you spend the rest of your life trying to balance the scales, Tyler said simply. Making better choices, being better, that's all any of us can do, right? They continued walking in companionable silence. When they reached the residential section, Ha was waiting outside their quarters. This crystalline face was difficult to read, but her posture suggested concern. We must talk. Tyler excused himself, leaving the two roommates alone. Ha led inside and activated a privacy field. I have been researching human military history since you left for the colony defense, Ha said without preamble. Specifically, I researched the colony wars and the special units that operated during that conflict. There is very little public information. Most files are classified or redacted, but I found enough. She pulled up a holographic display showing news reports, casualty lists, and strategic analyses. There was a unit known only by designation, Shadow Company. They handled missions considered impossible or too dangerous for regular forces. Hostage rescues deep in enemy territory, sabotage of critical infrastructure, elimination of high-value targets. Their roster was never publicly released, but the few references that exist describe them as extremely young, extremely skilled, and extremely damaged. Said nothing, her face carefully neutral. You were one of them, Ha continued. You had to be. The way you move, the way you think, the way you led students with no experience through an impossible situation. You are not an academy student learning combat. You are a veteran trying to forget what you learned. Why does it matter? Because you are my roommate, because I have judged you unfairly since you arrived, because you risked your life to save people you did not know, and I wish to understand who you truly are. Ha's voice was gentle. I am not your enemy, but I need to know if you are hiding from your past or running from it. There is a difference. Sat on her bed, suddenly feeling very tired. Both, I guess. When the wars ended, I left military service because I could not do it anymore. Could not be that person anymore. I thought if I came here, learned diplomacy and command, I could use my experience to prevent wars instead of fight them. A noble goal. Except I was lying to myself. I thought I could just hide what I was and become someone new, but people do not work like that. You cannot just erase who you were. She looked at Ha. Captain Cross told me I need to integrate my past, not escape it. Use what I learned to build something better. I think she's right, but I do not know how. Ha was quiet for a moment. Then she made a sound that might have been approval. You begin by being honest with others and with yourself. You are a soldier who has seen war and now seeks peace. That is not shameful. That is growth. What if people demand I leave the academy? Some students are already calling for my expulsion. Then you fight to stay, not with weapons but with words. You prove that your past makes you more valuable, not less. You show them that someone who understands war is exactly who should be learning to prevent it. Smiled slightly. When did you get so wise? I have always been wise. You simply were not listening. Ha's crystalline form seemed to shimmer with amusement. Rest now. Tomorrow will bring challenges, but you do not face them alone anymore. The next morning, Commander called a full academy assembly. Every student and instructor gathered in the main hall. The mood was tense. News feeds had been running stories about the colony defense for days, and opinions varied wildly. Some praised the academy's actions. Others questioned whether students should have been deployed in combat at all. Commander stood at the center of the stage, his massive form imposing as always. Students, faculty, honored guests, we gather today to address the recent events at the colony. 30 students and 5 instructors participated in a combat operation that saved thousands of civilian lives. Their actions have drawn both praise and criticism from across the Galactic Council. He paused, letting his words sink in. I have received formal complaints from several council delegations. They argue that the academy violated protocols by deploying students in active combat. They demand disciplinary action against instructors who authorized the mission. Some demand the expulsion of students who they claim misrepresented their qualifications. Murmurs spread through the crowd, felt dozens of eyes turning toward her. I have considered these complaints carefully, continued, and I have decided to reject them entirely. The hall erupted in surprised reactions. The commander waited for silence before continuing. The students who volunteered for that mission did so knowing the risks. They faced real danger, displayed real courage, and saved real lives. That is not a violation of academy principles. That is the embodiment of what this institution teaches. He looked directly at Some have questioned student qualifications, specifically regarding human student Hayes. It has been suggested that she hid military experience to gain academy admission. I have reviewed her entrance examination results, her application materials, and her academic record. Everything she submitted was truthful. She passed the same tests every student here passed. Her prior experience does not invalidate her admission. If anything, it makes her more qualified, not less. Elder Mosh stepped forward to join. We have also reviewed proposals to establish new programs based on recent events. Specifically, we will be offering advanced tactical command courses for students who wish to specialize in crisis leadership. Hayes has been invited to serve as a junior instructor for these courses while continuing her own studies. The announcement caused another wave of reaction, or stood up from his seat. "Commander, I wish to speak." Nodded permission, or walked to the front of the hall, his silver skin reflecting the lights. I have been Hayes' harshest critic since she arrived. I questioned her qualifications. I mocked her species. I actively worked against her in training scenarios. He turned to face directly. I was wrong, not just wrong to doubt her abilities, but wrong to judge her based on species and background. She saved my life at the colony. She led us through impossible odds when I froze in fear. She proved that strength comes not from natural advantages or noble birth, but from choice and character. He executed a formal bow, a gesture of deep respect. On behalf of House Tellin and myself personally, I apologize, to and to all humans present. Your species has earned its place among the stars, and I will speak in your favor to the council. The hall was silent. Then Tyler started clapping. Others joined in. Within moments, most of the assembly was applauding. Not everyone, some species still harbored doubts, but enough to matter. Stood slowly, feeling overwhelmed. "Thank you," she said simply. "But I was not the only one who made a difference at that colony. Every student who volunteered, every instructor who led us, we all did it together. That is what I learned from this experience. We are stronger when we work together, using all our different strengths." Captain Cross approached the stage. Hayes is correct. This academy exists to train future leaders who can unite the galaxy, not divide it. We have many species, many cultures, many ways of thinking. That diversity is our greatest asset when we choose to use it cooperatively. Commander nodded agreement. Which brings us to our final announcement. The Galactic Council has formally recognized the students who participated in the colony defense. You will each receive the Council Star for civilian protection, the highest honor for non-military personnel. The ceremony will take place next month at the Council headquarters. The assembly continued for another hour, discussing policy changes and new programs. When it finally ended, found herself surrounded by students wanting to talk. Some offered congratulations. Others asked questions about the colony defense. A few wanted to discuss training techniques. Tyler eventually rescued her, pulling her away with apologies to the crowd. "You are going to be mobbed for weeks. Better get used to being famous." "I did not want to be famous. I wanted to be left alone." "Too late for that now," he grinned. "Besides, you are going to be a junior instructor. That means teaching other students, kind of hard to do while hiding." Pix approached them, the small, looking nervous but determined. "I wanted to thank you. At the colony, when I was scared, you told me I could do it. You believed in me when I did not believe in myself. I would like to join your tactical command course when it starts, if you will have me." "Of course, you were brave when it mattered. That's what counts." Pix smiled and hurried away. Other students began approaching with similar requests, realized her life at the academy had changed completely. No more hiding. No more pretending to be someone she was not. For better or worse, everyone now knew who Hayes really was. That evening, stood in the observation deck looking out at the stars. So many worlds out there. So many species trying to coexist peacefully. So many ways for things to go wrong, but also so many opportunities to make things better. She felt a presence beside her and turned to find Elder Mosh. The ancient looked out at the stars with eyes that had seen centuries of galactic history. "You are troubled," he observed. "I am trying to figure out who I am now. I was a soldier. Now I am supposed to be a student and a teacher. I do not know how to be both." "Why must you choose?" Mosh asked gently. "You have been a soldier, you are now a student, you will become a teacher. These are not contradictions, they are evolutions. Each phase of life builds on what came before." "But what if the soldier in me is too broken? What if I teach the wrong lessons?" "Then you will learn from those mistakes and teach better lessons." Mosh placed a hand on her shoulder. You worry that your past defines you. It does not. Your choices define you. You chose to come here seeking peace when you could have remained in war. You chose to lead when you could have hidden. You chose to save lives when you could have taken them. These choices matter more than any past action. Thought about that? Captain Cross said something similar, that I need to integrate my past, not escape it. Wise words. Your experiences, both good and terrible, have taught you things most people never learn: the cost of violence, the price of hesitation, the value of a single life saved. Do not run from these lessons. Share them so others might avoid the same pain you suffered. They stood in silence for a while, watching ships move between the stars. Traffic from 1,000 worlds, each following their own paths, occasionally intersecting, mostly coexisting peacefully. It was what the Galactic Council had worked toward for centuries. An imperfect peace, but peace nonetheless. The galaxy needs people like you, Hayes, Mosh said quietly. People who have seen darkness and still choose light. People who understand war well enough to prevent it. People who know the cost of every decision because they have paid that cost personally. I hope I can live up to that. You already have. At that colony, you proved what humanity brings to the galactic community. Not superior strength or ancient wisdom, but adaptability and determination. The refusal to give up even when all seems lost. These are precious qualities. Mosh left her alone with her thoughts, pulled out her data pad and opened a file she had been working on. Course outline for Tactical Crisis Command. Topics included situational awareness, team coordination under stress, adaptive strategy development, and ethical decision-making in combat situations. She added a new section, understanding the cost of command. Students needed to know that leadership meant making choices that would haunt them. That sometimes there were no good options, only less terrible ones. That courage was not the absence of fear, but the choice to act despite fear. These were lessons she had learned in blood and fire. Lessons she wished she had never needed to learn. But if she could teach them to others, maybe some future students would avoid the same mistakes. Maybe some future conflicts could be resolved without the level of violence she had witnessed. The door opened again and Ha entered the observation deck. I thought I might find you here, hiding from your admirers. Thinking about the courses I need to prepare. Ah yes, you are now famous junior instructor Hayes, veteran of actual combat, leader of heroic colony rescue. Ha's tone was teasing. However will you handle such responsibility? One day at a time, I guess. They stood together looking out at the stars. An unlikely friendship between a human veteran and a scholar. But perhaps that was what the galaxy needed more of. Unlikely friendships, unexpected cooperation. Different species learning to trust each other despite all their differences. You know, Ha said thoughtfully, when you first arrived, I thought you were just another primitive human, barely qualified to attend this academy. I was completely wrong. You were not wrong about the primitive part. Earth is still pretty rough compared to most council worlds. Perhaps, but I have learned that technological advancement is not the same as wisdom. Your species may lack some of our toys, but you understand things we do not. Resilience, adaptation, the determination to survive against terrible odds. She paused. These are not primitive qualities, they are essential ones. Smiled slightly. You have changed too, you know. When I first met you, you were so certain of your superiority. Now you sound almost humble. Do not spread that rumor. I have a reputation to maintain. But Ha's tone was amused. Still, perhaps recent events have taught me that superiority is less important than cooperation. We all have strengths. We all have weaknesses. Together, we are better than we could ever be apart. The next few weeks passed in a blur. Attended her own classes while preparing to teach others. She worked with Captain Cross to develop curriculum that balanced theoretical knowledge with practical application. She met with students interested in tactical command, answering questions and sharing experiences she had kept hidden for so long. Or became an unexpected ally. His family's political connections helped quiet opposition to his position. More importantly, he began organizing study groups where students from different species practiced working together on complex problems. The arrogant noble who had once mocked humans now actively promoted cross-species cooperation. Tyler continued his pilot training, but he made time to help adjust to her new role. He became her unofficial assistant, handling scheduling and administrative tasks so she could focus on teaching. Their friendship, forged in simulation and tempered in real combat, became one of the strongest bonds either of them had ever known. Even the students who initially opposed presence at the academy gradually came around. Some remained skeptical, but most recognized that her experience and willingness to share it made the entire academy stronger. Humans were no longer seen as primitive newcomers, but as valuable members of the galactic community. The Council Star ceremony took place as scheduled, stood with 29 other students and 5 instructors, receiving recognition from the Galactic Council's highest officials. Ambassadors from 47 species attended. News feeds broadcast the event across Council space. Once name was called and she walked forward to receive her medal, she thought about the girl who had hidden in a storage container while her world burned, about the teenager who had enlisted seeking purpose, about the soldier who had done terrible things for necessary reasons, about the veteran who had come to an academy hopping to find a different path. She was all of these people, not one or the other, but all of them together. Her past did not erase her present. Her present did not invalidate her past. She was Hayes, veteran and student, soldier and teacher, broken and healing all at the same time. And maybe that was okay. The ceremony ended with a reception where students mingled with council officials. Found herself in conversation with an ambassador who asked about her plans after graduation. "I am not certain yet," admitted. "I came here thinking I wanted to be a diplomat, prevent wars through negotiation. But after the colony defense, I realize I might be more useful teaching others how to handle crisis situations when diplomacy fails." "An interesting perspective," the ambassador said. "The council could use people with your experience, crisis response teams, peacekeeping forces, advisory positions for conflict zones. Your unique background makes you valuable for many roles." Thanked the ambassador politely but made no commitments. She had time to decide her future. For now, she had students to teach and her own education to complete. That night back in her quarters, finally took out the photograph she had kept face down in her bag. The memorial at Sector 7, all those names. She looked at it for a long moment, then placed it on her desk where she could see it. Not hidden anymore. A reminder of what she had survived and why she fought to build something better. Ha noticed the change but said nothing. Instead, she simply placed a small crystal next to the photograph, a traditional symbol of honoring the fallen, a gesture of respect and understanding that meant more than words ever could. The galaxy turned. Students studied and trained. Instructors taught. The Galactic Council governed. And Hayes, once a soldier trying to forget, now a student learning to remember, prepared to help train the next generation of leaders. She did not know what her future held, but she knew she would face it honestly, using every lesson her past had taught her, carrying the weight of her experiences while reaching for something better. The galaxy had underestimated humanity when they arrived. It had underestimated her when she walked through the academy doors. She would spend the rest of her life proving that humanity's greatest strength was not violence or aggression, but the determination to grow beyond their worst moments, to choose hope over despair, to protect rather than destroy, to build rather than break. The stars shone outside her window, countless worlds spinning in the void. And somewhere among them, other people faced their own darkness, fought their own battles, sought their own light. Hoped that someday, the lessons she taught would help them survive. That the mistakes she made would spare others the same pain. That the galaxy she and her fellow students inherited would be a little bit better, a little bit kinder than the one she had known during the wars. It was a hope worth fighting for, and Hayes had learned long ago that sometimes hope was the most powerful weapon of all. A leader who saved rather than conquered. The academy vessels jumped back to faster-than-light travel, carrying students who had left as children and returned as veterans. The galaxy would never see humans the same way again, and Hayes would never see herself the same way either. As the academy vessels powered up and prepared for departure, felt something shift inside her. She had come to this academy to escape her past, to be someone new. But maybe Captain Cross was right. Maybe the point was not to escape who she had been, but to use it to become who she needed to be. The vessels launched, accelerating toward a colony under siege, toward people who needed help, toward a test that would reveal exactly what Hayes was capable of when she stopped holding back. No one studies that hard. This crystalline eyes reflected light in shifting patterns. Who are you really, Hayes? Did not answer. She walked away, leaving the question hanging in the air like a threat. The galaxy had no idea what it had let through its doors.